Hey guys, this is Joe from Joe Concept. How is everything going with you guys? All right, so for today, I was actually looking up some animation on Behance and I stumbled on one animation set, so I thought I should share with you. And also wanted to look at how to recreate that. So if I go to this person's profile, her name is Gabriela Pekarkova. So she has this animation going on, and I'm thinking I should recreate this animation. So you see this kind of animation. That is what we're going to be looking at. So you could also, I'm going to put the link in the description to our profile. So you could also check some of our works and appreciate her also. So let's just get into this tutorial and see how we can make this animation set. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating a disk object. So if I select this, create a disk object, I'm going to put this disk object to like 20 centimeter. I just want it to be small. And then I'm going to increase the rotational segments, maybe like 48, so that I have a smooth edge. And that's what I need there. Then the next thing I'm going to create is to create a rectangle shape and change the plane to XZ so it stays on the ground. Then I'm going to reduce this also. I'm going to reduce the height to say 40, and I'm going to change this to like so why I'm changing this height to 40 is because the disk here is set to 20, so the radius is set to 20. So if from here to here is 20, that means from here to here it has to be 40. So if we have 40 and 40, I'm going to be changing the width to 100. So we have 80 plus a little bit of space in between. So another thing I'm going to do here is to create a rounding to it. Then it's going to round that edge. So we have this. And surprisingly, the radius is 20, and that solves that part. So that's it. So another thing I'm going to do is to move this down. So if I hold down shift and move down, and as an increment of, so you see this, and that if we go to the coordinate, it moves at 30, and that's fine. So this is what we have. So actually I'm going to move it up, not here. So I'll just change this to minus value. So this is where we're starting from. So that is the first thing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this guy and Alt or Option G to put that inside a null. So I'll hide that null. Call this backup. Okay. And so the reason why I'm backing up is because I want to do something to this guy. So what I want to do is to change the position of this anchor, the axis line. So for me to do that, I need to first off convert this to an editable format. I can either click on this here, or I can right click and I say make editable, or I can use the hotkey C. So as soon as I make this editable, then I have that control to move this anchor point to wherever I want it to be. So I want it to be at the center here. So if I go to this and I click on affect axis, another thing is I would also switch on my snap, and I want to be able to snap to axis snap. So I'll go to move, I'll move that anchor to this point so that I can snap it there. So this is where I need to have this guy snapped. Okay, so I'll turn off this anchor point. So the reason why I'm doing this, in a moment you're going to see why I'm doing this, so that by the time I'm scaling towards this position, it will not be scaling from the center. So that's why I'm moving this anchor point here. All right, so once I'm done with this, I need to look for a way to convert this to a 3D geometry, because right now if I render, I'm not going to see that line. I'm only going to see this. Okay, and you see that I'm not seeing the line, so I need to look for a way to convert this to a geometry. So I'm going to be using this. If I select this rectangle, hold down Control, and I'm going to be using loft instead of extrude. So the reason I'm going to be using loft is because I don't need any thickness. Remember from the reference, it's more like we are trying to create a minimalistic design, just a flat design, not a 3D design sort of. So I'm going to make it loft. So if I put this inside that loft, this is what I'm going to have. I'm going to have this. But at the moment, everything looks because of this default color. So I'm just going to use a default material, create a material and place that on my loft. So we're going to have this. And yet we run into another problem. And that problem is by the time I start creating a camera. So let me just create a camera and just set my camera to a particular position that I want. So let me just round off this value, make this minus 90 and move this guy to a particular location I need, zero out that. So this is just what I'm moving here. So let's assume this is the position I want. Okay, so just so that I don't run into any problem, because if I render, it could interfere. So what I always like doing is to so like you can see here in this position what I'm having it. I don't want to be having this interference, so I will just move this disk a little bit upward in the y-axis, so maybe 0.01, just really small, could be maybe 4, to be sure that everything is perfectly where it should be. And once I'm done with that, I can now start doing my animation. Right, so starting with the animation, I'm going to hide this disk first, and hide the loft, and I work on the disk. So the way I'm going to work with this animation set on the disk is I'm going to be using the scale value and then the position, because if you look at the reference, it scales up first, then moves, and so it scales from 0 to 100%, and it moves up. And as it moves up, it brushes off and creates the yellow stuff. So I want to start with just one of the shape, then I'll just duplicate and do the other one and offset. So that's just a better way of working. So instead of me recreating this from scratch, so I'll just then I'm going to keyframe all this, and I'll bring this down to somewhere here, and I'll move this to 0, 0, 0, and keyframe that also again. So if I play through, this is what I get to have. See? So we have this. Okay, can you see that? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is after I keyframe, after this is scaled up, let me move this up a little bit. After I scaled up, I want it to stay for like 2-3 frames. So here 1, 2, 3, or 2. Let's just make it 3. I'll select the disk and go to the position. I want to move it along the x-axis, so I'll keyframe the x-axis and move up again, maybe up to 25, and change this so you can see the value. So let's just say we are moving this. So remember the scale, we're going to be moving that. So if I let go, we need it to fill up this place. And I've checked that with the value. Remember we moved this 30 downwards. So it's going to be 60. That will place it here. So you see what we have. So it's going to be minus 60, and we play. We keyframe that. So if I play through, this is what we are going to have. So you see that scales up, stays a little bit, then moves. But now the issue here is that the scaling up and the moving is just too dull for my liking. I need to add some interest to it. So for me to add that interest, I'll be doing that in the curve editor. So I'll just right click, make sure my disk is selected, go to show curve. And now it's showing everything, including the position and the scale. I don't want everything to be shown. I want things that I select to be shown. So how to do that is to go to the curve, F-curve tab, and uncheck this show all track. So right now nothing is selected. I'm not seeing any curve. But if I select the position, it shows me the curve. Select this, it shows me that curve. So I want to work on the scale first. So I'll select all the scales. So sorry about that. So the way the navigation here is just what we have here. Hold down Alt and middle mouse to pan, scroll your middle mouse to scroll, and then all these things still works here. So if I scroll my wheel, it zooms in and shows me that. Then also hold down Alt and middle mouse is going to pan. So what I'll do now is to select this and just create a curve. So I'm looking for more of an arc curve. That's you see the way this comes up. So it scales up with interest and it goes. So the same thing is what I'm going to do for the position. So I'll go to this position, scale or zoom out. And for this position, I'm just going to select this part and move the curve somewhat like that. So I'll just squash this in a little bit, something like that, and move this here. So let's see what it gives me. So you see the way it moves? Yeah. So that is what I want for that. Okay. So the next thing is for me to look for a way to animate this rectangular shape. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a tag, a pose morph tag, and that's what I'm going to use. And the reason I'm adding this pose morph is because I'm going to use that to animate the points. I can't just animate the points mode directly from here. I'll have to add a separate tag to do that. So for me to do that, I'll just right click on the rectangle, go to my rigging tag, then I'll go to pose morph. This is where we are. So in the pose morph tag, I want to activate the points because that's what I want to activate. That's what I want to control. So I'll click here, and this is what we have. So it brings me to this tag, and under my edit mode, let me just turn this off for a moment. Let me bring this all the way to the point where this scales up 100%. So now in the pose 0, I will use my rectangular tool to select all these top points, all of them as is. So once I have them selected, I can move holding down shift and let it go at its increment and then let go. You see that 60, and that is where this moves at. So if I go to the pose morph and I go to the animate tab, you notice I can animate this. So even if I go to this object mode, I can now animate. Okay, I can animate. So this is what we're going to use to animate that. So if you look at this disk, the animation of the movement starts from 15 to 25. So I'll go to 15, go to the tag. I want to keyframe at 100%. Then I will go to 25. I'll bring this down to 0% and keyframe. But now we're going to run into another problem, and the problem is just so because we have tampered with the curve of the disk, and that the timing will be quite different. You can see what we have. See that the timing is different. See the timing is different. So we need to look for a way to match that timing, and it's just a matter of tweaking the curve of that rectangle too, so that it looks like this. So if I select that rectangle, I can right click and go to show F curve. Look at what we have here. For this F curve mode, we only have the disk, but as soon as I click on show curve for rectangle, it includes that rectangle here. Okay, so we have that rectangle. But now I want to look for a way to show both so that I can see them in this viewport. So how do I do that? I'll select both shapes that I want to see, then I'll right click, show F curve. It's going to show me all of them. Then we can now start working on this. So this is for the rectangle, sorry, this is for the pose morph, and this is the disk. So if I go to the F curve, and so if I select this pose and this, you notice that the curve I have for disk is quite different from the pose morph. So I'll select the pose morph and start to control. So if I select this, I can see the way this goes. You can see it goes at a little angle. I'll do the same thing. And also if you look at the number of what's it called? So let me just zoom in like this. If you look at the number of boxes I have here, 1, 2, and almost at the third one. So here we have 1, 2. This has passed the third one, so let's just say somewhere here. So I'm just kind of eyeballing to see, and it goes almost at the middle. So eyeballing so that I can see this so that everything would look almost the same. Then if I go to the down part, you notice this goes 1, 2, 3, 4 and enters into this top. So I'll do the same thing here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter somewhere here. So let's just say here. Can you see that? So this should just look very similar to what we have here. Okay, so that's just the point. That's what you need to try to do. So let's just say something like this. So if we, as we are working on this, we need to also look at the curve here. So you notice that tweaking this, I have a little bit of delay here. So just see there's a little bit of delay, so I think I need to move this even way up. Down until this looks right. I think I need to move it down still. Yeah, so I think this looks better. So it looks better. So what you need to do, just keep tweaking till it gives you more like what you want. So now that I have this done, the next thing is to, let me put this into this loft. But now this is now another problem we now run into. When we start, you notice this is showing. We don't want it to show. Okay, we don't want this to show. We want this to be invisible until after the disk has started moving. Then we now see it more like it's placing. So this, you notice we have another problem here. And that problem is this moving quite faster. So I'll select this, right click, come here and try to work on the pose morph. So I think it's pose morph, right click, the pose morph, and this guy, right click, go to curve. So go to this pose morph and try and work on this here. So this is just what we need to change right here. And let's see. I think that's fine. That's fine. So you see, it's not shooting past that. So like I was saying, we need this guy to not be visible until after this disk start moving. So how do we do that? The same thing we did for the disks by animating the scale. So we're going to do the same thing for the rectangle. So if we come to this rectangle at this point, it is here that we want this to be 100%. So we'll just keyframe that. And at this position, let's just say somewhere here, we need to bring this down. We'll just say 0, 0, 0. Keyframe that. And that is it. So if I turn off this for a moment and I play through, see what we have. So it scales up also, but you are only seeing it here, but by the time we move our camera, we will not see the scaling. Okay, so it would have scaled underneath it, and then it looks like it's painting that out. So that's just how you would do that. So if I go back to my camera now, this is what I'm going to get. Scales up, then it paints that up. Okay, so that's just the basics to the whole thing, how to create that setup. So once you are done creating this setup, the next thing is for us to do the other one. Okay, so the other one is just, so I'm going to select these two guys. All right, so as I was saying, I'm going to group this guy up and then just duplicate that. So I will Alt or Option G to group this and call this maybe switch group switch 1, switch group 1, anyhow we'll call that. So we have this 1, and I'm going to duplicate and call this group 2. So for this group 2, I'm going to move this group 2 to one side. So I'll be in my object mode, and just move this, holding down shift to move this, let's just say 60. Okay, so if I play through, both of them will go at the same time. So you see that they go at the same time. So what I need to do is I need to change the timing for both of them. So I'll work on the group 2, select these two guys, this and this. This is where the animation is. So I'll just move this and move them upward. Okay, so we have something that goes like this. Open, open. Okay, so you see that. So I think I still want to move this up a little bit. So if you play through, okay, so now the problem with this now is I did not select this. So I'm going to undo this a couple of times. So when you are doing this, you need to select everything that there is to select. So I forgot to select this pose morph tag. So I'll select this and the pose morph. Those are the things I actually need to select, not the rectangle. So once I have this, I can select them and then move them forward. So let's see what happens. Okay, so now this so we have another issue now. So this right here, oh sorry, I actually have to select everything because remember I came here to animate this also, so that's very important. Everything that you animated is what you have to select. So I'll bring everything as this, select 1, 2 and 3. Okay, and then before I highlight all the keyframes, then I move them, everything will move together. Okay, so let's just look at this. This comes up, that goes up, and this. So that is what we're looking for. So if I play through, okay, so I think I can still move this forward a little bit. Let's move it forward a little bit still. All right, so now if you come back and check that animation, as this first one scales up and that as the other green one is coming up, the yellow one goes back down. So you see what is happening. It scales up, that scales up, goes. So as this one is going up, that one is coming down. So we need to also replicate that. So this is the position at which it was going up. So here. So at this position, I need to select the group 1 disk. Okay, so at this group 1 disk, I'll have to keyframe at that position again. Then I need to bring it down. So let's look at the timing at which this goes up. So it's up to 40. So I'll bring this guy here and go back to this disk and move this down to 0 and keyframe that. But then we still need to go and work on the curve because the same way we worked here. So if I select this and I go to, so the curve is going to look like this, and that's not really what we want. We need to have that curve that we had. All right, so how do we do that? So if I play through, this is what we're going to have. So let's turn off this. So we have a couple of problems here. So you see that problem. So this goes up, and so at this position here, you notice at this position this goes up. Here I need to, like, you notice there's a little bit of a jump here, and the reason is just because once it gets here, there are some curves before it starts coming down. I need this place to be straight. So what I'll do is just to select this, okay, hold down shift and bring this curve to break that handle. I'll do the same thing here. Okay, this is actually fine. So I'll just make sure this is straight up. So if I come back and play through, this is what I'm going to have. It's going to stay first before coming down. So now we are done with this part. The next thing is to work on this here. So we just select the end part and try to simulate try to create that curve the same way we have for this, just to try and make a symmetrical curve shape. So if we look at this now, this is what we're going to have for this object. It goes up and that, so you see that. Okay, so now I'm having a little bit of sharp movement here, so I will switch this up like this, and let's say this one goes all the way to this place. Should it be this way? So let's see, maybe this is, I think this is what we need. So just what I'm doing is just creating the curve, and let's see what we have. All right, so this is actually the right one, not the symmetrical curve, because I noticed for the symmetrical curve it came more mechanical. So this is what we're looking for, creating that same curve going that way, and that gives us pretty much what we want. Okay, so once we are done with this, the next thing is to look at the next stuff. So I will select these two together and I'm going to group them. Okay, but before I group them, you notice that they move from one frame to another, from one shape to another shape. You notice this yellow moves from the yellow to the green, and that green moves to the yellow, and then they rotate. So the way I go about that is, before I do the rotation, I'm going to do their movements. Okay, so I'll come to this place. So I just want to work on both discs. Those are the ones that I'm changing. So for the first disc, I need this to stay for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and also need this to also stay for the same number of frames. So you can see that this is correct. So I will just select both of them, keyframe their Z position because I need to move them along the Z axis. So I'll just keyframe this Z position. So after staying for that number of time, I'll move another frame. So I'll select this first one. Then I will move holding down shift to constrain that 60. Then I'll keyframe that. Do the same thing for this one. Holding down shift, constrain 60, keyframe that. And both of them would have gone from that position. Okay, so let me just select both of them and increase these guys all the way here to this point. And also, I would also want to work on their curve. So this is the curve we want to look at. So we will turn this off. We want to select the Z positions. So these are the Z positions we want to work on. So select this one. So let's say that is there. This is here. So let's see what we have. Just playing through this place. Okay, so this is not the curve I'm looking for. You see, this is the mechanical curve I was saying. So what I will do is I will move this guy back. So just right click and reset that. So let's just select this and reset. Do this also for this and reset. So I think I'll just undo both of them. Okay, so this is what I'll do. Select this one, pick this curve and move this up just to get this kind of, and do the same thing for this one. Do something like this. Okay. Okay, so let's see what we have. So if I play through, all right, so that is the kind of animation I'm looking for. So now you see both of them moving. So now what I'm going to do now is to group them together again, Alt G, and call this logo group. So once I have that logo group created, so what I want to do is their movements. You notice their movement from there to here. I need to look at where they started moving and where they ended. So they started moving from this point all the way to 60. So at this point here, I'm going to select the group. I want to look at this position. So first off, I'll change this to XYZ. So maybe XYZ. Then I'll look for the position I'm looking for. This is not what I need. This is okay, so I'll undo that again. I'll bring this out. So what I want is I'm going to create the null myself and position the null to the center. Okay, just eyeball this as being the center before I put them here. So I'll say logo group. So again, I'm going to change this to XYZ. Okay, so this is what I want to change. Okay, all right. So like I said, we are starting from here all the way to 60, right? From this point to 60. So I'm going to keyframe this guy at this point and go to 60 and move this guy. So let's look at the what we have. I think I can get rid of this to look at the rotation. So it rotates that way. So we'll rotate this way. So let's just say it goes at 45 degrees and keyframe that. And that's not all. It's look at the rotation and the movement. Okay, so after it rotates, it now moves. Okay, so you notice that. So you have to always look at that before any other thing. So we look at that rotation. So what I'm going to do is get back here again. And then I'm going to hold down Control and add another null object. So while I'm adding this null object, this is going to be the logo move, while this is logo group rotate. So this is just, I'm sorry, this is just the way we have to go about it, because, and I'll tell you why I'm doing that. So I'm going to put this group rotate into this move, so that by the time I rotate the object, I still have this control to move this object, because right now at this point you notice this axis has changed, so it won't be easy for me to rotate horizontally. So that is why I'm putting this in the move, so that I can now use move to move. All right, so once we so once we have sorry, this should be group, not go group. So once we have rotated this all the way to this point, I want the movement to start immediately after the rotation. Okay, so let's just say after here, we'll keyframe this. We want to move this along the z-axis, so keyframe that and move all the way here, and then move to the side and keyframe that. And then I'll do the same thing for this. Right click, frame, do this curve somewhere here. So it's more of a transient curve that I'm getting here. So if you look at this and play through, so the timing at which you want this to move will be dependent on, okay, so if you want it to move at a slower pace, just do this, and that will be the timing at which it's going to move. So if you just do that, okay, so you see that. All right, okay, so that is how to do that. But then there is this little animation also, this small secondary animation that we also have here. Let me do this first before we go to that animation. So you notice for the most of everything, just working in the F curve to fine tune the way the animation moves. All right. So once we have this, if you look through the reference, you notice that there's a little bit of secondary animation in the movement. See, scale, it rotates down and goes back up before it moves here. So it's not just this straight movement. There's a little bit of a rotation, like a follow-up animation, and that can be done in the rotation. Okay, and how we do that is look at the time at which I'm moving this object. So I'm moving at this position and I'm ending here. So I will keyframe the rotation at this point. So let's just say this goes to 80. So I have a value. So I'll keyframe the rotation, this same rotation at this point. And then at the 80 also, I'm also going to keyframe, right? Because it gets back, but not 80 per se. I'm going to go past 80 a little bit. Then in between, let's just say somewhere here, I'm going to take this back. And that might be too much, so let's just say from 45 we can say 50 and keyframe that. So if you look at what we have, we're going to have something that looks like this. So I think this should come here, and I also think 50 is too small, so let's just try and say 60 minus 60. So you're going to have this little secondary animation that goes and comes back. You can see that. So this is, maybe I will bring this here. Okay, so let's see, somewhere here. Just because it's moving out, so it does that. I think we should still bring this forward. So if I play through, it goes fast and see what I'm talking about. So that is the little animation that I was talking about. So it's just to try and create. So like I was saying, sorry about that, I got a call, so I had to just pick it. So you see the secondary animation, and that's just how to add that 3D thing to it and just make it not look too mechanical. So if we play through everything from the beginning, see what we have, and then this is it. Then from here we can now start coloring this. So actually sample their color. So if I'm to do that, I will just duplicate. So I actually have 1, 2, 3 colors to work with. So the first one is the blue color. So this is the so I can go to an X code to paint. So I just have this X code for this. So I'll copy this and paste that. That's for the blue. And for the second one, this is the X code, the yellow. And for the third one, and for the green, so we just copy that. And that's this. So we can just start placing them on top of where they should be. So this first one is the yellow, so we'll put that yellow here. This next one is the green, we'll put that here. And these two dots, they are blue. So if you look through now, everything looks like what we have there. Okay, so that is the animation set. So you can now start rendering this. So if you want to render this in this case now, you actually don't need any lights, because it just depends. Like I said, that's more of a minimalistic logo. So we actually are not putting lights into consideration or whatsoever. So what we can just do is to make sure this is in the luminance color. So I'll just drag this over into the luminance and turn off every other thing. I think we actually need this to be in the luminance. So I think all we just need to do is to turn off their reflectance and just have them as is. So if I render that, this is just what I'm going to have. Okay, so without background, so we just have that. Okay, so you see that. So, and if I want to have a background, maybe white background, so all I need to just create a background object and put another object and put that in the background. That becomes that background, and just give it the color that I want. So we can just put this, turn off that, give this white color that it should have. So let's just say HSV and put this guy upwards and just render with that. And that's just pretty much how you can do that. So this is what I wanted to show you guys. If you feel this was helpful, please do give me a like and a thumbs up, because it helps me in YouTube algorithm. And if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe, because I do tutorials like this every day. So do have a wonderful day, and God bless you. Bye.